Have you ever asked yourself, why do some people hurt you and then just move on like nothing happened? Why does it feel like you were the only one who actually cared, while they simply walked away? And the hardest question of all, why does it still hurt you so deeply, even when you try to act like it doesn't matter? Because here is something most people never realize. Pain does not just happen to you by accident, and people do not enter your life randomly either. Sometimes the pain you feel is not there to break you. It is there to show you something you were ignoring for too long. And if you stay with me through this video, you will not just understand the pain, you will understand yourself in a way you never have before. Because most people survive the hurt, very few ever understand what it was truly trying to teach them. 1. Your pain is not weakness, it's proof you felt deeply. Let's not skip over this part, because too many people are told to simply move on, get over it, stay strong. But here is what those words miss. What you felt was real. The connection was real. The trust was real. The loyalty you gave was real. And that means the pain is real too. In psychology, there is something called emotional investment. The deeper you invest yourself into a connection, the more your brain treats that person as part of your sense of safety, your sense of home. So when that person hurts you, it does not just feel like losing them, it feels like losing a part of yourself. But here is what most people never realize about emotional pain. It does not usually come from one big moment. It comes from a buildup of small things your mind ignored for too long, and when it finally reaches its limit, it forces you to see clearly. That is why some situations do not just hurt you, they wake you up. Stay with me, because what comes next is where everything starts to make sense. It wasn't always about you, but it still changed you. Here is something most people do not like hearing. People do not always hurt you because you meant nothing to them. And they do not always leave because you were not enough. A lot of the time, people act from their own emotional limits. Their confusion, their insecurity, their inability to handle the depth you carry. But here is the part that matters more than their reason: the impact it leaves on you. Because in psychology, every emotional experience reshapes how you see people and yourself. And sometimes the person who hurt you is not the lesson. The lesson is what their behavior reveals to you, about expectations, about attachment, about what you were ignoring while giving too much of yourself. And that is where the real understanding begins. Not because they were right, but because you are now seeing clearly for the first time. 3. When attachment turns into silent emotional dependency. One of the deepest lessons pain teaches is about expectation. Because the more emotionally attached you become to a person, the more your mind starts building silent expectations. Expectations they may never even know about. And when reality does not match those expectations, that is where the pain truly begins. Not because love is wrong, but because attachment quietly turned into dependency on a certain outcome. In psychology, your brain had already classified that person as safe, as someone who belonged in your inner world, someone who had access to the most vulnerable parts of who you are. And when that person causes pain, your mind does not just process it as hurt, it processes it as a threat from within your own safe space. That is why it feels so disorienting. That is why part of you still cannot fully believe it happened. But here is what I need you to understand right now. The fact that it hurts this deeply is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign of how genuinely you loved. 4. How losing someone quietly rebuilds who you are. There is another lesson that only becomes clear with time. Loss changes you, not always in a negative way, but in a real and permanent way. When someone steps away, ignores you, or disappoints you, your mind is forced into a state of deep reflection. You start noticing things you ignored before. You start valuing your own emotional space differently, and slowly something shifts inside you. You stop chasing what drains you, and start recognizing what actually deserves your energy. In fact, psychologists call this emotional intelligence growth through adversity. When you experience deep betrayal, your brain does not just record the pain, it studies it. It analyzes every signal it missed, every warning it dismissed because it wanted to believe the best, and then quietly, without asking your permission, it upgrades itself. That is growth. But it never feels like growth in the moment. It always feels like pain first. Keep watching, because what comes next will change the way you see everything. 5. Pain does not just break you, it reveals the truth. Pain has a strange and powerful ability. It removes illusion, because when everything is good, people show you what you want to see. But when things break, they show you what was always there. That is why emotional pain often feels like clarity later. You do not just remember what happened, you understand what it meant, and life used that hurt to hold up a mirror. What you see in that mirror, if you are brave enough to look, is not someone who was foolish or weak to trust. What you see is someone who loved deeply in a world that did not always deserve it. You see patterns, you see behavior, you see truth without filters, and that understanding is more powerful than the experience itself, because now you are no longer confused. You are clear. And clarity is one of the most powerful things a human being can possess. The moment you stop breaking and start becoming. At some point, something changes inside you. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me about people and about myself? And that shift is everything, because it moves you from emotional reaction to emotional understanding, from pain to awareness, from confusion to clarity. And healing does not feel like healing when it is happening. It shows up in small moments you almost miss. The morning you wake up and realize you did not think about it first thing. The conversation where you laughed, and it was completely real. The moment someone shows you kindness, and instead of doubting it, you simply receive it. You are not becoming harder. You are becoming clearer. You are not becoming closed. You are becoming more intentional. You are not becoming someone who trusts less. You are becoming someone who trusts better. And that version of you was always worth becoming. 7th, what hurt you was never the end. It was the beginning of you. So when you look back at what hurt you, try not to see it only as something you survived. See it as something that shaped your understanding, that stripped away what was never truly built for you, that made space for what actually is. Because in reality, life does not always teach through comfort. Sometimes it teaches through confusion, through distance, through loss, through the people who did not stay. They hurt you, and that was real. But here is what is also real. You are still here, still feeling, still growing. And the same depth that made you vulnerable to this pain is the exact same depth that is going to make your healing extraordinary. Pain is not punishment, it is direction. And the people who hurt you the most and sometimes teach you the most important lessons of all, not about them, about you. If this video reached something inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear it right now. Leave one word in the comments that describes how you feel. It could be healing, grateful, seen, or simply, yes. Subscribe to Psyche Secrets, because the more you understand human behavior, the less power confusion has over you. And remember, your story is not over. It is just getting started.